So what used to be a fun hobby is now a minefield of hype, scalpers, and consistent controversy. And what should be an enjoyable hobby is turning into a problem which we all need to be made aware of. However, before we get into today's video topic, I'm actually gifting this awesome Hisuian Growlithe illustration rare. Now, to know if you won this card, if I do reply to your comment and I add the Charmander emoji, then well done, because this card is being sent your way. And also, hey, if you are new to the channel, welcome. My name's Phil. I love making topics around Pokemon collecting and investing discussion. Definitely feel free to subscribe to stay in the loop. Now, as I said in this video, right, I really do want to break down what's going on within Pokemon at the moment and hopefully illuminate some of the issues that the hobby's facing today, particularly around scalping and overhyping sets, because it's becoming probably far too common and definitely something we need to be made aware of. One thing that's pretty important to know, and not many people are actually saying this right now, but there is actually a lot of supply of singles entering the market because packs are being opened at an accelerated rate. You know, it's important to know, even though the sets are all selling out at pre-orders, that doesn't mean that it's always going to stay like that, right? Because the truth relating to Pokemon cards at the moment is that there's a lot of artificial demand for sets, and it's all kind of been timed really well, right? For example, Prismatic Evolution sold out and it was super hyped, and it was kind of a mix of a perfect storm because, you know, Pokemon TCG Pocket released right at that time. But, you know, right now we can see Journey Together isn't really holding up that well. It's not really comparing to Prismatic Evolutions, and prices are really coming down for Journey Together. And the reason for this is because I think a lot of collectors placed Prismatic Evolutions as the benchmark of what's expected within this new hype wave, right? You know, everyone, as soon as they saw Prismatic, they said, oh, Prismatic is expensive. The singles are crazy expensive. Oh, you know, Prismatic sold out everywhere. I can't find it at any store. So, you know, everyone just thought, you know what? That means now every new Pokemon set is going to follow the same path. But what's missing from this equation is one simple thing. Prismatic Evolutions would have likely been difficult to find even without the newfound demand, because it was literally Evolving Skies 2.0. Prismatic Evolutions was the first EV themed set since Evolving Skies. So all those collectors who missed out during that time period all said to themselves, hey, you know what? When the next Evolution themed set, or, you know, the next set that's going to be like Evolving Skies gets released, I'm going to go ham in that set. And that's actually what happened, right? So, you know, it is important to know that some of these Pokemon cards are experiencing a bit of artificial demand. And I really do think Journey Together is a good example of this, because it's not going to last forever, right? And probably being smart with your spending is important. I mean, check some of these card prices here and just check what's happening within the hobby. So the first one I'm on here right now is the ENS Reshiram, right? And you can see this one's actually kind of come down a fair bit in price, man. Check this out. You can see around that pre-release, it was selling for 69 US, right? And now selling for $13. Now, it's probably very overinflated at that point. I think what was happening, right, was everyone was kind of speculating that, hey, we can see like what's going on with all these kind of Pokemon cards just ballooning so much in price, and people just put the kind of same rationale on this Reshiram, and they just thought, oh, it's going to be the same kind of story with all this, right? And I think Journey Together, right, the release slot of it was actually not that good because Pokemon cards were all booming. I mean, if you remember, illustration rares were going wild, the Commia cards were going insane, you know, Drowsy, Baxcalibur, Brubonnet, and this was all at the same time when Journey Together was, you know, available for pre-orders, right? So I think a lot of the cards and, you know, Journey Together, it may be a very long time before we ever see some of these prices again. And, you know, maybe this ENS Reshiram won't ever get to that price point again, you know, definitely not for the near future. Though, you know, some of the singles are also finding some lows in the market. One to look out for right now is the Pikachu from Surging Sparks, the special illustration rare, selling for $487 late January. You can see right now selling for $343. If I pull that into the month graph, in the last month, you know, going from $439 all the way to $340, it's kind of dropped $100 just in a month. So what's really interesting is when we look at the SAR, the Japanese equivalent for the Pikachu, right? But what's really interesting as well is the Japanese SAR and the English special illustration rare. Yes, the Japanese version is cheaper, but not by that much, right? I mean, it is maybe $120, but usually, like if you look at something like the Terastal Festival Umbreon, the price difference between the Japanese and the English is enormous. Whereas this one, it's not that crazy in comparison to some of the others, right? So I'm interested to see what's gonna happen with this one. I do know Japanese collectors love their Pikachu cards as well, man. So this one may be an interesting opportunity, especially if it keeps coming down in price. Also, while speaking about these Japanese Japanese cards, if you are looking to purchase some Japanese products, it's a good time to talk about today's video sponsor, which is Bai. So sometimes when you're trying to buy Japanese products online, you might hit a common roadblock, which is that the products cannot be shipped to your country. However, that's exactly where Bai comes in. Bai is a Japanese proxy shopping service which lets you purchase almost anything in Japan and have it shipped to your door. When using Bai, you can just search for something you want. For example, here I'm typing Pokemon cards, and Bai will deliver the results from the top retailers including J-Direct Items, Rakuten, Amazon Japan, and many others. Bai then will ship the items to their warehouse and get the products ready to be sent for international shipping, which includes multiple regions such as North America, Oceania, and Europe. And the best part is that all the viewers on this channel get 2,000 yen off their first purchase when they spend at least 10,000 yen. The link and discount are within the description of this video. Though, when talking about the different prices of, the Japanese cards and, the English cards, Lillies Clefairy is one that's really interesting, right? When we look at the English version from Journey Together, selling for $324 on release, fell down to $197 at the moment. This card has really tanked, man. From its pre-release price point to now, it's taken a serious plummet, right? I'm very interested to see where Lillies Clefairy finds its position in the market. Will it keep coming down? Who knows at this point? But when we look at the Japanese version, check this one out. The Japanese version from Battle Partners also has been coming down in price, but you can see the pre-release for this one was $512. However, you can see it's stabilized at around $260. So you can see the Lillies Clefairy, the Japanese version, is far more expensive than the English one. Now, it's obviously because Lily's on the card artwork, and Japanese cards that feature Lillie always get huge fan demand, right? So it is not that surprising that it is more expensive. But you know what I really thought? I thought the special illustration rare would have been a little bit more pricey. I'm very happy that it's not, but I just thought that it would have been. But anyway, you can see the Japanese version selling for $260 at the moment. Now, moving on to some other big hitters that are actually coming down in price right now. You can see the Greninja special illustration rare from Twilight Masquerade selling for $331 in January, found a new high of $411, and you can see it's now retracing, selling for $359. This one's definitely a correction, but I'm very interested to know whether or not when that Twilight Masquerade reprint comes about, how much this one's going to come down in price. But one viewer commented on the channel, they were like, are the reprints in the room with us? And that made me laugh so much, man, because it's like seriously, are they? Like, we don't even know that much about them. We just know reprints are happening, and I don't know how much it's going to play out in the market, though I'm really hoping that if they do come, that they're big, and hopefully that this Greninja can even continue to fall down in price. I do think, and I always say it, right, don't ever expect that these top chase cards that you're ever going to get them for a crazy bargain. You may get them for a good discount. I always kind of like to think of these cards as getting them as a discount rather than thinking they're going to crash to like $40. Sometimes I think people's expectations can be a little bit out of the realms of common sense because these cards are super hard to pull in the first place. If you do get a good price for them, you should be happy. Don't ever just think they're going to be going down to zero that, sometimes a lot of these doomsayers like to say. Moving on to Pokemon 151. 151's actually going through some interesting things. You can see the ETB, the sealed is just continuing to climb up, and you can see selling for $207. It is interesting that it's happening because apparently there is some 151 reprints on the way for the ETBs. But when we look at some of the singles of 151, you can see the Charizard's really falling down in price. In January, selling for $234. Then it went all the way up to $293, and you can see right now selling for $224. Pretty big price reduction. We go in that last month, and you can see that's just coming down in price. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen because there's a lot of communication that we're getting more 151 out in the market, right? So the fact that, Charizard, I always say it's not the rarest card to pull. When we look at Greninja, that's 1 in 900 something packs, right? This is 1 in 200 and something, right? So the fact that it is not that hard to pull in comparison to other special illustration rares, in fact, I do think it can continue to come down in price as well. Now also, while some of these prices go up and down, if you are new to the hobby and are looking for a place to connect with the Pokemon community, feel free to join my channel's Discord, and you can even enter some awesome Discord exclusive giveaways. The server invite is within the description of this video. Now, moving on to the Journey Together enhanced booster box. Really cool that we got this kind of enhanced booster box, and it has the guaranteed promo inside, which is awesome. But you can see, check this one out, man. Pre-release selling for 500. That was just, wildly expensive. But you can see it kind of did calm down around March for 285 US, which is still wildly expensive for a booster box, man. Like I said, man, it's pre-release pricing. It shouldn't be that expensive. Usually whenever I pre-order my set, I'm talking, last year, if I pre-ordered any of my Pokemon sets, that's when I got the best price. And then, hopefully even a year later, I'd get it for a good price as well. But right now, look at that, man. Pre-release selling for 285. You can see it's calmed down a little bit now though. Selling for 213 has had a bit of a pullback, and that is very, very good. I think it needed to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but now that I'm seeing this kind of market pullback, I'm really, really happy because, I hope Destined Rivals, especially with all the communication we've got from Pokemon and how they openly said they're going to be printing more, I really hope we see the same kind of price movement for Destined Rivals when it releases and it just slowly comes down. Though, interestingly, there is some 151 cards that are actually going up in value. One of them is the Pokemon Center Squirtle. You can see in the last 3 months, selling for 114 US, right now selling for 157. Definitely some big price growth on this card. If we pull this into the year graph, you can see that this card literally since October from 74 US has just gone up, up, and up. And now it's selling for 157. Big reason for that is because this card is pretty exclusive, man. This card is whatever's now in the market, that's what's there, right? It's very unlikely that we're ever going to get this card reprinted again. So I think that's what a lot of collectors and the sentiment is changing to that. A lot of people don't want all these cards that are going to get reprinted. Some of those high-end investors and collectors, they really want these kind of cards now because they kind of know, hey, they're kind of protected from reprints, right? Though a big one to check out right now is the Gengar VMAX Alternate Art from Fusion Strike. I haven't really looked at Sword and Shield cards that much, and it's funny because when I started this channel, I would always go through Sword and Shield cards, right? That was like the biggest thing people wanted content on. Right now, Sword and Shield, people are really more focused on Scarlet and Violet, right? But you can see, check this one out, man. From 747 in February, the Gengar VMAX is now selling for 642. What a massive price reduction in the last 3 months. I do think as time goes on that this Gengar will actually retrace and rebound, but right now it's good to see that a lot of these high-end chase cards are just getting some of their price coming down because it means more people, if they want to buy these cards, now's the kind of opportunity, right? Though I am very excited to see what's going to happen with the market at the moment because I do feel right now some cards will rebound at a later date, but at the moment I also feel coming into that US and European summer period, I think a lot of people will be able to get some good deals as well. Now, as much as Pokemon cards are in a difficult position right now, it's likely that things can also reverse, and when they do, it may be a good time to purchase some of your favorite cards. And I think the main aspect here is to ensure you collect on a budget. And I actually did make a video uncovering the 10 best Pokemon cards under $10 right here. Within this video on screen, I go over some of the most awesome Pokemon cards under $10. If you love a bargain, click on this video that's appearing on screen and I'll see you there.